2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
Well, hello and welcome to 2414. My name is Shane Welter. I'm joined by Pastor Dan and Rebecca O'Hara. And this is 2414, a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to our episode and our series, Marriage is Messy.
And thanks for being here, Miss O'Hara.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I still don't know what to call you. So I met you as Miss Matson.
Yes.
And so now it's O'Hara.
Correct.
And I think sometimes I see your name as Rebecca, but other people call you Becky.
Yeah.
Who calls you Becky? Who calls you Rebecca?
Oh, my husband calls me Becky.
Okay.
I get called Becky or Rebecca from my mom. So when I was in elementary school, there were two girls in the class with the same name, myself and another girl. And for a while, we were just Becky M, Becky W. Sometimes if one of us would forget like the last initial, I'm sure it was confusing for the teacher. And so at some point in our grade school career, someone decided that I would be Rebecca and the other girl would be Becky.
Okay. Huh.
And so I carried that through high school. My letter jacket has Rebecca on it. And then I went to college and my cousin Michelle came with me and she knew me as Becky. And so I went back more towards being Becky with my friend circles there. And so it kind of depends on like where you knew me in life. But since Rebecca is my given name, that's always what I put like on my resume and job applications. So my formal title name, Rebecca, is what came to St. Luke's, like on the letterhead with my resume and credentials and stuff.
So what should Shane call you?
Becky.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I say something different every time, though.
No, that's no worries. You know what? The kids on the playground call me something different every time, too.
Probably mom half the time.
I do. Mom, I've gotten grandma. I've even gotten grandpa, which I'm like, hold on there.
Wait.
So, Becky, thanks for being here. And listeners, thanks for joining us. Today, we're continuing our little series on Marriage is Messy and just the reality of what all of real life is messy, but marriage puts people in close proximity. So there's kind of different messes and different challenges related to that. Before we get into marriage stuff, highs, lows, and if you got to go to the zoo and you could only see one animal, which animal would you see and why? Well, is it nice to start with our guest, or does it put them on the spot?
I think we'll start.
Okay, sorry. I was going to give you a chance to think and breathe, but ladies first. And
What?
Oh, no, Shane was wanting to go
I'm not
first.
listening. Shane.
I'll say one thing.
All right, Shane, lows, highs, and if you got to only see one animal at the zoo.
Okay.
I'm not listening to you. I'm listening to our guest.
That's, I guess. All right. Lows. I'll kind of start with, I'm just very kind of tired recently. Just been busy. Dare I say stressed? I don't know. I try to use the word sparingly because, I don't know.
Which word?
Stressed.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Just because I'm busy and overcommitting myself to a lot of things. And so it's just kind of piling on. I'm like, I'm a person who just needs to just veg out every once in a while to feel rejuvenated. So looking forward to sleep and just sleeping and resting. Highs though, I am still grateful. I've got a lot going on. Might be redundant for me to say. I'm always constant where my wife Lauren and I live too. We love where we live. We'd love kind of just settling and making it home still. Still not a fan of the spiders, but spiders,
Giant house spiders. He collects them.
No, well,
with his vacuum cleaner.
Technically, yes. It's not dead yet, by the way. It's still in the vacuum. I put tape on the end of it, and it's a see-through vacuum, and it's still alive.
Awesome.
I tapped it this morning. It was like, So with that,
I've got a story about a possum related to that, but I can save that for later.
Oh my gosh.
I'm interested how spiders and vacuums and possums relate, but animal at the zoo, not spiders, if you can believe that. If I could see any animal at the zoo easily, it would be a cassowary.
A what?
It is, yeah.
He's just trying to impress us all.
No.
Don't fall for it, people. He just made that up. It's not a real animal.
Get out of here. No, since I was in 4th grade, I found this animal from like a zoo books. Do you remember zoo books?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there was this one on like the ostrich family. And in there's this animal called the cassowary. It's about the size of an emu, so tinier than an ostrich. It's got black fur feathers. It's got a blue head, and it's got a horn on the top, like a single kind of. Yeah. Huh. It is the coolest looking animal ever.
All right.
I've never seen one in person, but it's like my dream someday to own one, keep it in a cage. It was also Guinness Book of World Records deadliest animal too.
Oh.
So
I don't believe most of this, Shane.
You got to look it up. It's
like Balderdash.
Yeah.
I'm selling a fib right now.
All right.
Believe me, listeners at home, try.
Okay.
Or if you believe me.
Well, geez. Now I feel like my answer's
comment
boring.
below if you think any of that was true.
No, I was just really excited to share that because I have one favorite animal and I'm always excited to share it.
Yeah. So if you're just listening, I can confirm that Shane's face is glowing as he talks about this fictional creature. And before the show, when I said that we're going to talk about animals, he lit up and had an answer immediately. So this is not fake. At least his enthusiasm isn't fake. The creature is still to be verified.
Yeah.
Becky, lows, highs from the week, the morning, the last hour, the last 5 minutes. And if you got to go to the zoo and you could only see one animal, what is it?
Well, I guess the low is that my husband is not able to join us for this chat because he's experiencing some significant pain and inflammation from his injury.
And your husband's name is?
My husband, Mike.
So if we refer to Mike today, we've left a chair open and empty here in Mike's memory and honor.
Yes.
You can Photoshop him in.
We can Photoshop him in post-production.
Yeah.
So sorry, Mike's not feeling so well.
Mike's not feeling so well, not able to join us for this. But the high is there's a lot of great things that happened today and this weekend. Today, we're getting ready for Armed Forces Day in kindergarten. We're going to recognize that next Friday on May 13th. And so today we were able to have the father of one of my students who is an active duty soldier join our class and talk to us about military service today. So I didn't tell him that his dad was coming. So it was a really fun surprise for him and the whole class to have our special guest today.
Cool. Did they show up wearing their civilian clothes or show up in their fatigues?
In fatigues,
cool.
in uniform. And he brought, as a gift for the class, each kid got to pick one of his patches that he's actually worn on his uniform. And super Velcro-y. So the kids are all trying to Velcro it to themselves and to me and to the floor and to, yeah. So that was super fun. They all went home with these big smiles on their faces, waving their patches as they went out to their cars. So super fun way to end the day.
That's awesome.
That's so special.
Yeah.
They're going to remember that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It'll give them something to think about as we recognize and make thank you cards for soldiers next week on Armed Forces Day. So they'll have that fresh visit in their mind.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you and Mike go to the zoo and he lets you pick this time the animal.
Okay. Yeah. My animal. Well, just one.
Mm-hmm.
I always like watching the elephants. I think it's just so unique, their trunks that they use to grasp and pick up things. And they're just these big, massive beasts, but they can be so graceful in their movements. So, yeah, I like elephants.
All right.
Really unique animals.
Yeah. And when I see them, I always think of having gone to the wildlife safari with my father when I was a little girl. And so that brings up like a special memory for me of the wildlife safari and getting to ride on an elephant and getting my face painted. So it was just a special day.
Where was that? Is that?
It's just south of Roseburg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Here in Washington.
Okay.
Oh, I went to the one in Oregon.
In Oregon.
Yeah, in Oregon. Yep.
Okay. I was thinking, like, do you go all the way to Africa for this? Or?
No.
Okay.
Northwest Safari.
Yeah. Northwest Safari.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, new fact. That's
Yeah.
that's an animal I have heard of and can verify.
Yes. What about you, Pastor?
Low would be, well, I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but I'm still not quite in a good running routine. So it's been hit and miss rather than consistent. So when I'm at my best in most of life, I'm running very regularly, very consistently, and it becomes weird when I miss a run. Mm-hmm. And more recently, it's been the exception of, I actually got out there and did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So that I'm training for a big run this August. And so my training plan, I looked on the fridge yesterday. I was supposed to have run 48 miles this week, and instead I've done 6. So
start somewhere.
So I'm starting at a deficit, and August is coming fast.
6 more than me. Just got something you got a bar.
Yeah, that won't make me feel any better in August when I'm out in the wilderness.
How far is this run?
I think around 42 miles is what it's going to be. The Timberline Trail around Mount Hood. So I'm training for that. Although, I've printed a training plan on my refrigerator for that, and I need to start training. So that's my low. High. My other low is both of you know that I'm a pastor, and some of our listeners probably know that as well, but I get to preach most weekends, and some weekends I feel like I'm able to communicate the message I want to deliver more clearly than others. And I think this weekend I wasn't able, or I didn't communicate as I wished I would have. So that's kind of preacher's remorse sometimes of walking away going, it didn't sound like or communicate what I wanted. So that's my other low. High, the sun has been out. Some of these get repetitive, but here in Washington, my listeners, those of you who are in Washington know that this is a daily high. Every day the sun comes back is a good day. So the sun is out, and then Titus and I, my youngest, went for an adventure walk yesterday, which means for about 45 minutes, we just wandered the streets of Tacoma, and he picked all of our turns. So, yeah. Animal at the zoo. I'm a big fan of the lion. They're often sleeping, so they're kind of boring to see at the zoo. But every now and then you hear one roar, and it's the most terrifying thing in the world. And all of a sudden, that big pit between you and them and the giant fence doesn't seem nearly enough. It's like when they're sleeping, you're like, lion, whatever. I could,
It's just lying around.
It's just lying around. But when they roar, it's like, all right, maybe he's the king. Yeah.
You can feel it.
So love me a good lion. Cool. So that's, some highs, lows. Once again, Becky, Shane, thanks for being here today. We're talking about marriage. As Becky said, Mike isn't here today, but we miss you, Mike. We'll see you next time. I'm curious, Becky, about so many different things about your life as it relates to marriage, but if we could rewind before you met Mike, what were your thoughts about marriage? Kind of goals, strategies, is marriage
strategies.
Did you want to get married?
Yeah, I did. My mom lives up in Seattle, and so I go visit her quite frequently, and I was helping her go through boxes of memories one time, and I came across a picture of me about 3rd grade, and I had written down, when I grow up, I want to be a mommy. Aww. And I can still remember, for the longest time, I feel like that's what I've always wanted to be, is like a mommy, a wife and a mommy. Because for me, those two go hand in hand. And so I went to college and didn't really try to seek out dating opportunities. I just kind of assumed it would happen if it was meant to happen. Nothing really happened in college, and I went on, graduated, and started my teaching career, just thinking it'll happen when it's time. But here I am, 42, and I was still unmarried at that time. And I realize now that it was because I wasn't really putting myself out there, or when I was not really seeking the right kind of guys. I wanted certain things, but then wouldn't find them. And I settled on occasion with my dating relationships, and then they wouldn't turn out, and kind of not a fun cycle. Yeah. And so it was a few years ago, actually like towards the start of the pandemic, and I was reading, bored, nothing to do, sitting at home. And I was going through all the books on my shelf because the library's closed. I'm like, what have I had forever and I haven't read yet? And so I started reading, and of course the name is going to escape me right now. There's two books, John and Stacey Eldridge, that's who it is, the authors, John and Stacey Eldridge, and they co-authored a book called, I think it's Captivating, and it's about the heart of a woman and how it relates to God, and how we can understand women's roles through and relate them to certain aspects of God's character as well, and how he created the heart of a woman. And then why am I blanking on the man's book? Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart.
Oh. Wild at Heart was about the heart of a man, and how you can see these aspects of masculinity in God's character. And I devoured both of those books during the beginning of our COVID quarantine time. And I was highlighting and journaling and praying and really like, okay, God, I'm a few years ago, so 40. I'm still single. And God, you said in your word that it is not good for man to be alone. And so you created Eve for Adam. So who's my Adam? Who am I meant to be with? Who did you create me for, to partner with and do life with? And that was really the cry of my heart. And I prayed over that again and again. And I brought that to God again and again, multiple times. And towards the end of the school year, which was early in the pandemic quarantine, I had the opportunity to move, find a new teaching position. And my prayer was, God, wherever I move to, let me find my husband there. My heart was to be closer to home, to where my mom is, where I grew up here in the Northwest. But also, I want to be married. I feel called to partner with someone in life and do life with. So if that person is also happens to be back where home is, that'd be really great, God. And so obviously I'm married because I'm here on the Marriage is Messy podcast series. But I didn't find him right away. But yeah, it's always been on my heart that I wanted to be a wife and a mom someday. And so it was at the end of my first school year here at St. Luke's, where shortly after, towards the end of the school year, as Mike and I had our first date, actually a year ago, Mother's Day, we had our first date. Wow. So we've known each other almost a whole year.
Wow.
That's awesome.
At this time.
I want to get into the details, kind of like when you met Mike and everything. But before I kind of want to get into that, I'm curious hearing your or what you thought when during the period when you were away from home in Washington, and when you were single, where did you find kind of your solace or your ground while being kind of alone, or like in relationships with God?
I'd love to say that I always turn to God as my source of comfort and but to be honest, no, sometimes I would look for comfort in a person. And I would end up in relationships that led me down paths I didn't want to go. And I'd realize shortly down the line that, this is not God's calling for my life. As much as I want to be married, I don't want to be with the wrong person.
Would you say those were good kind of learning experiences for you, though?
Yeah. Every thing has brought me to who I am today, and I know my husband has had relationships in his past that he's or things in his past that he wished weren't part of his story, but they are, and they've both made us into who we are today. In fact, we were just talking on our way home from church the other day that Pastor Dan, you said Sunday, turn to the person next to you and say, I'm glad you're here. So I turned to him and I said, I'm glad you're here. And I said, as bumpy as your past has been, I love you for who you are today. And I'm grateful that you've come through those things and it's made you who you are. And he said the same thing to me, I'm grateful for who you are and that you're in my life today.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah. There was an article I looked at today on BBC.com that had the headline, something about single shaming and how there's so often maybe an implied or very explicit pressure from other people of, oh, you're still single or you haven't met the person yet. Did you feel pressure or did because I think what I kind of gleaned that article was that it's not healthy or loving to assume or to put expectation on somebody else's life. And some people, they don't need to be married. They don't need to have dating in their life that they're not looking for something or incomplete a part of it. It's not like they're floundering until they find that person. They just living a great life. And if they happen to get married, fine. If not, that's fine too. Yeah. So I'm curious about kind of your internal state of, so I think I heard you say earlier that you, since young girl, you wanted to be a mommy and a wife. Yeah. And so you had something of maybe a overarching goal somewhere in there, but did you feel just content, peaceful? This is who I am. We'll see what happens. Or did you feel like you were longing? And then how did that maybe compare to other people's interactions?
I guess I feel pretty fortunate that I was surrounded by good friends and family who never put that kind of pressure on me because I didn't really experience it. I've seen it and heard of it, but it didn't happen for me. So for that, I'm grateful. I did always have that desire, but I said to myself, well, it's not happening yet. So God's can use me in other ways. And so I could invest myself more into ministry and be more involved in my church. And as a single person, I have this time freedom. I don't have to check my schedule with someone else. I can just come and go as I please. And so for me, I found a lot of freedom and opportunity in my singleness. In some ways, that opportunity to be super involved is what kept me single, but I never felt pressure.
Yeah, we get to love our neighbor, whoever that is. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a physical neighbor, maybe it's a student or grandma at church.
Yeah. I will say that like my family would see, you have such a heart and you're this and you're that and you're such a great woman. Why aren't you married yet? But it wasn't like a pressure that they put on me. It was like, you're quite a catch. Why hasn't a good Lutheran man found you yet?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So how'd you meet Mike?
Facebook dating. And every time I say that, people are like, Facebook has dating? And yes, Facebook does have a dating section. Obviously, if you're married, you're not going to be looking to find out that there's Facebook dating. I tried all sorts of different online dating services and was kind of like, ugh, none of them worked out. But I had a college friend who'd had kind of a messy relationship. And all of a sudden she's talking about how wonderful this guy is that she's found and she's happy. And I was like, okay, what's the difference? What happened? And she's like, Facebook dating. And I'm Facebook dating. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, if it worked for her, I'm going to give it a try too. So went on there, and just like any online dating site, you do kind of have to do some weeding. And I decided I am done settling. I'm going to set the standards high. Mm-hmm. And if I can't find a guy, oh, well, I'll continue serving God in my singleness. And girls apparently get tons more matches than guys do and have lots more opportunity to be choosy. So I had all sorts of interest flooding into my inbox after I posted my profile, and I would go through and, you still don't, even though guys might be interested, they don't write back very often. And so I'm liking pictures and trying to initiate conversation by making a comment about something. You have a nice smile, or that's a cute dog, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what got Mike into conversation, is he had seen my profile first and liked me. And so he popped up in someone liked your profile list. And so I'm going through looking at his pictures, and he's got a dog and he's on a boat, and I'm like, cute dog, what's his name? He said to me later, he's like, I thought for sure I would never hear from you again. Oh, she's cute. I like her picture, but I'll probably never hear from her. And so we started in conversation on Facebook dating, and then it just happened. Mother's Day weekend was that weekend, and
that's this upcoming weekend.
Upcoming weekend, and
while we're recording it, it's a couple weekends ago. Perhaps those listening at home.
Yeah. But we agreed to meet out at Reston Point. Okay. Trying to be safety conscious in this day and age. Public place. Okay. Yeah. Met at Reston Point and walked and talked along the waterfront, and a couple hours later, we decided we'd meet again.
Okay. Did you have any friend escape plan built in? Like, call me at 1:00, and if I say blue umbrella, come get me, or anything?
Yeah, I did. And I had to use it, not with Mike, but with other guy before, Malika, who you guys know, was my escape plan. I'd text her, okay. I'm going here with such and such a person, check on me at such and such a time. And there is one time that I did have to sneak into the bathroom and text her, call me in about 10 minutes and remind me that I forgot to meet you and we have to go now. Okay. But did not have to do that with Mike. I texted her, and when I got back to my car and said, it was great, I'm going to see him again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, what were some of these, I don't know, what were big draws for Mike in amidst kind of.
Are you talking about the online before they met draw, or in person? I'm curious about the other.
A bit of both.
Kind of in order there.
Yeah.
So what is it? I heard a smile and a dog in a profile. I'm not fishing for myself, but for our listeners who might be in a similar situation.
Yeah. I like a good smile. So I was looking through his pictures, like, is he going to smile in any of these pictures? Guys do not smile in their pictures. They have kind of these straight faces, or they don't know how to take selfies. They're at awkward angles. So he had one good picture his sister had taken for him. So he was smiling. He was on, how could you not smile when you're on the water in a boat on a beautiful sunny day? So he's on the boat. His sister took the picture. So thank you, Tam. It's a good angle. Has the dog to spark conversation. So we started chatting, and he was different. He was pursuing me more than I was pursuing him. I always knew that I shouldn't be the pursuer in a relationship. That goes back to like the Wild at Heart that I had read. The man, you've got that caveman thing. You need to go out and conquer and pursue. And my mom was always telling me, don't chase the man, let him do his caveman thing. And so Mike was different. He was that guy doing the pursuing and initiating. And it's the end of the school year, and there's a certain amount of stress around the end of the school year for a teacher and all the things that we have to do in the programs to prepare for and report cards and yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And so I was a little bit stressed. So that was taking up some of my time and energy, but he kept initiating and kept pursuing. And I was like, oh, there's something different about this guy. And, in our conversations, he was just real. And that's something like I really craved. Like, he's not putting on any fronts, trying to be macho.
He wasn't like bragging about this and that.
He was very real. And when we had our first date at Reston Point, he laid a lot of things out there about his past. He says he just knew when he saw me, he had to be real with me because he wanted another date with me, and he didn't want things to come up later that might scare me off. So he was just going to lay it all on the line.
Wow.
And if he got another date, great. And if not, at least he was honest. And that was really attractive to me. Like, he wasn't afraid, because I have things in my past that I'm not proud of, but they're part of who I am and make up my story. And since he did that, I felt like it was a safe place to be real with him about who I am and some of the things that are become part of my story. And that was such a huge gift, to not feel like I have to hide, that I could just be who I am. And that was the thing that made me want to come back for more. Like, this guy, okay, I showed him this and he's still here. So maybe I can tell him about this. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's still here. And, we kept revealing parts of our story over our dates and conversations. And yeah.
Wow.
Were you at that level of openness, or would you have received that level of openness in the same way had you been 30 or 25, just in terms of your maturity? If a guy came with all that, would you like, whoa, like too needy, too like get it together? Or would that have been as appealing earlier to you? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I would not have been ready for that. Like, we both look at who we are today and we love each other very much. And we joke from time to time, like, man, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But then we think about who we were 10 or 20 years ago. We're like, yeah, but I wouldn't have been attracted to you back then, or I wouldn't have been ready for this kind of relationship. So, I used to be a big people pleaser, and I used to put up a front, like, I think this is what a guy wants in a woman, so I'm going to try to be this. And that would last maybe for a little while, and then they'd see through and the relationship would end. Or I would get tired of trying to put on that front and show them who I really was. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to be me. And if he likes me, great. If he doesn't, all right, I'll try again. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
But things just kept working.
Things just kept working. And before we knew it, we were smitten and enamored and denoted. We kept finding all these little synonyms before we actually said the big L word.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went from Facebook Marketplace, Facebook dating. Facebook dating.
It is a bit of a marketplace.
It's different. Facebook dating to Ruston Way.
Yeah.
And at some point you're engaged.
Yeah.
What happened between, was that 48 hours, 32 more years?
A little bit longer than 48 hours. So let's see. So we had our first date Mother's Day weekend, and then in June, end of the school year, things got kind of busy. And then I had a cousin who got married in late June, and her wedding was down on like the south side of Mount Rainier in Ashford. And I was going out to her wedding with family, obviously. And then he was out fishing in that area. He has a really good buddy who lives down there, and they were out fishing. And I jokingly texted him, hey, when you're done fishing, come crash my cousin's wedding. The ceremony's over and we're dancing and hanging out. And he did. He did. And I was just like, wow, he's either really stupid or really brave to come meet family. We've not even known each other 2 full months. And he came and he was talking with my brother, who also is named Mike. And it was just comfortable. It just felt right that he should be part of that family gathering. And my brother Mike and my boyfriend Mike were talking. And then he met my uncle and my aunt and my other aunt and my cousin. Mm-hmm. And he fit right in, and he felt really awkward because he's in his fishing outdoors gears. And I'm like, oh, this family's from Alaska. They're outdoors people. You'll fit right in. And he's like, no, like I'm covered in fish scales. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. He showed up and they were like, it's okay. We're glad to meet you.
I'm picturing like the waders and suspenders.
Yeah, no, he didn't have that on. He had on hiking pants and like a Columbia sportswear kind of shirt. But yeah, he was covered in fish scales and smelled kind of fishy, but
gross.
He showed up and he just jumped right into the family thing. And I don't remember if I had told him or he just somehow thought of it on his own. We've never talked specifically about it, but we decided to like caravan back home towards the Federal Way, Auburn area. He was living in Auburn. I was in Federal Way. We decided to caravan and I followed him home because I was not really sure about where I was going. And at one point he pulled off the road and I was like, what's he doing? Like, is this getting creepy? But then we pulled into this parking lot and there was this amazing view of Mount Rainier as the sun was setting and dusk was falling. And I was like, oh, this man like knows my heart. Like he knew that this would be really special to me because I'm the girl on the road trip. Pull over. It's a scenic spot. Let's check out this viewpoint. And so we started kind of like falling for each other then. And then July, later in June, those really, really hot days, like the triple digit days, right?
Yeah.
He planned a little road trip getaway for us down to Multnomah Falls. We could see the falls and then go play in the Columbia River to cool down.
Oh, cool.
And on the way home, we stopped at some more scenic viewpoints. And I'm still trying to do like, let's do selfies and let's take pictures. And I'm going through my pictures later. And in one of the pictures, I'm trying to get him to look at the camera. He's got his face turned towards my ear. And I said to him, what were you saying to me there? I don't remember. He's like, I was whispering, I love you. Aww. I was like, oh. We got home and I had been feeling like the I love you was ready to come, but I didn't want to scare him away. So I didn't say it. And we got home from that trip and we were at my apartment hanging out and I was like, I can't hold it back anymore. I have to tell you, and I don't want to scare you, but I feel like you're ready to say it too, because we've kind of danced around it by saying I'm enamored and I'm smitten. So I just have to tell you, I love you. He's like, I love you too. And going through the pictures later, like I said, I was like, what were you whispering to me there? He said, I love you. So I wasn't the one, I wasn't the first one. He said it first. I was just too busy focused on my phone and I missed it.
That's probably truer in most of our lives than we'd like to admit.
Yeah.
Too many things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what was the proposal like from when you met and to proposal? How long was it?
Not very long. So I went on a quick trip to Oregon. A really good college friend of mine was teaching in Roseburg, where I told you the wildlife safari is. A really good college friend of mine was living in Roseburg and getting ready to move. She'd taken a call to Wisconsin and I wanted to see her one more time. So I cruised down there really quick and I was telling her about this guy. And I was like, I think he could be the one. And like, it's crazy, but it just feels so different than anything I've ever done before. And so, I was out at pizza lunch with her and her husband and they're like, okay, if he is the one, you guys got to read this book. It's called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And I was like, okay. So get home from that quick trip and just things started coming up in our conversation that we knew that this was the direction we were headed. He had a picture of me on his phone as the wallpaper and he had his phone out at work and somebody at work asked him, who's that? He's like, that's the woman I'm going to marry. And he told me about that. He's like, don't let that go to your head. I'm like, okay, but here's a book my friend said we could read. So he agreed to do that with me. And so we started reading through the books. We went out to Browns Point and one night, and we're doing our book reading out there, and we hang out at the apartment sometimes and do it, and other places wherever we were. And I'd often just take the book, like, let's do our book, honey. Let's read our book, honey. And it just, because we had that foundation from our very first date, a very open, authentic communication, it made the conversations as we read through those books so much easier. We knew we didn't want to hide anything from each other. We were going to be very real about our expectations, about our past, just all of it. And so we knew we were headed towards marriage. And he's been married twice before. And he said, I want to do it right this time. I want to ask your dad. I'm like, I'm a grown woman. I'm 40 something years old. You don't need to ask my dad's permission. He's like, no, but I want to. And I was like, okay. I felt really honored that he wanted to do that. And my dad and I haven't always had the best of relationships because he lives so far and away in Alaska since my parents divorced. We haven't been as close as we wanted to, but we've been working on it. And it really meant a lot to him. We took the time to fly up to Alaska a couple weekends before school year started. And Mike was so nervous. Like, he really wanted to do this the right way, but he was nervous. And so one night we're sitting in the living room and my dad's like, come here. And we walk down the hallway. He's like, I feel like there's something, a reason you guys came up here, but Mike's not saying it yet. I'm like, I know, he's nervous, Dad. He's a little scared to ask you. I was like, so maybe you could create an opportunity for the two of you to go do something alone so he could talk to you. So he goes and he gets his wife, Katie, and Katie decides, you need to take the dog for a walk and you need to ask him to go with you.
All right.
It's like our last night there, hours left before we leave.
Yeah.
So they go on their walk, they come back, and Mike looks relieved and my dad's face is kind of glowing, and he's I'm getting emotional.
Reminiscing.
My dad was so pleased that Mike had wanted to ask not necessarily his permission, but for his blessing. And so my dad, he did that. He said, Mike's admitted that he's not a perfect man, but neither are you, my daughter. But he's a good man. And I am so proud that he wants to be my son-in-law. And my dad offered a prayer and a blessing over us, which was really special for me because my dad has not always been a Christian. And the few times in my adult life that I remember him praying over me have been really powerful, significant moments in my life. So quick trip before school started. We met Dad, and then shortly after we came back, we went back to Browns Point a few days later, and he proposed. He's like, well, you know what I'm like, yeah, but you still got to say it. Oh. So we were sitting on the bench, and he kind of slips off the bench onto one knee and professes his love for me and shows me the ring, and yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are just memories forever etched in the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rebecca, I love your hashtag middle-aged newlyweds.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, and I realize none of us have perspective beyond our own experiences, so we're not actually able to compare how things are similar or different. But from your perspective, I'm curious, what are maybe unique challenges of being a middle-aged newlywed? And maybe what are some unique opportunities that if somebody hypothetically married their high school sweetheart and has never experienced life differently, Shane has certain opportunities kind of and challenges, kind of blessings and curses of that. What have you seen so far in 6 months, right? 6 months you've been married?
Yeah, this week.
So as a 6-month middle-aged newlywed, what are some of the unique, this is a really great thing about being a middle-aged newlywed compared to, this is maybe a challenge that other people haven't had to experience?
Well, one of the first challenges right off the bat was just like moving in together and merging all the stuff that each of us has accumulated in our adult life. Now, granted, he didn't really have a lot. He, had lawn chairs in the living room for watching TV. So I came in with my furniture, my sofa and love seat, and very grateful for that. But
so
then
nobody had to grieve over losing their favorite couch.
Yeah,
okay.
But then it's like, the dishes, he'd inherited a lot of his mother's dishes, and so which pieces are we going to keep? And funny little things like whose measuring cup set are we going to keep? And okay, if we're not keeping a few of the things that belong to his mom, we're going to give them to his kids. And it's just funny little things like the quesadilla maker. Are we going to keep the quesadilla maker? Who's it going to go to? And I'm like, it's a quesadilla maker. I didn't know there could be so much emotional attachment. But then it comes to the measuring cups, and I'm like, we can't get rid of mine. I've had this for forever, and it was my grandma's, So we've had to have some give and take over just funny little things like quesadilla makers and measuring cups that we've had for 20 years or that belong to our mom,
Yeah. What helped in that processing?
Well, it helped that we both don't like clutter. Mm-hmm. So we, after going back and forth, we just okay, I'll give, he'd give his to his kids, or I'd be like, okay, we can give my whatever to your kids and see if somebody wants it, or we really don't need 3 measuring cups. We'll just pare it down to 2. Mm-hmm. So it helped that, we had his kids that we could share things with, so that it could still kind of stay in the family if there was sentimental attachment, and the fact that we didn't want clutter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. My mom can attest that I don't like clutter. I like things organized, and Mike's friend and roommate, Jeff, can attest. He's neat freak. Mr. Clean is what
Mr. Clean
Mike gets called. Yeah.
So merging of stuff was one challenge.
Yeah.
Other challenges or specific opportunities being a middle-aged newlywed?
Well, like I said, Mike was previously married twice, and so he has 3 kids from previous marriages. And one of the big challenges we faced just a couple months into our marriage was the passing of his daughter. And going through such an emotional experience so early in our relationship, and finding ways to not only love him, but also to love his ex-wife, the mother of his daughter, and how can I be part of supporting them through their grieving process without overstepping, any roles or boundaries in this. Yeah.
What you said is just a super special thing that you don't hear people say, but I don't know, from a Christian perspective, we love people, and just something to saying loving his ex-wife just as a human being, just as another creature in God's creation.
It was, so she passed away for unknown reasons, and but she was on life support for several days, and Allison and Mike made the difficult decision to donate Jessica's organs, which was a very beautiful thing to be part of. And after they took Jessica off life support and officially pronounced her dead, there was a lot of emotion, and we're leaving the hospital, and Allison had brought a friend with her for support, and Mike had brought me for support, and Pastor Aaron was with us. But I could tell that Allison really needed someone's strength to lean on in that moment. And it was good she had her friend. But I just, Mike, you need to go put your arm around her because you were Jessica's parents and you just, yeah. And he said, thank you to me later. Thank you for allowing him to do that for Alice and to put his arm around her and not to, because some women would possibly feel jealousy and I'm comfortable in our relationship to know that I don't have to be jealous. You know, he and Allison had a relationship and they still have that bond of being co-parents, but she needed his support in that moment and more than I did. And so I have the freedom to let him go knowing that he'll come back to me later, but right now she needed him.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things I heard was in terms of a challenge or I don't know, a difficult thing about being a middle-aged newlywed is the person you're in a relationship with, married to, maybe has extended family in a different way than if you got married right out of high school.
Yeah.
But not even even if there was an extended family of multiple marriages or anything like that, there's just, I would imagine anybody who is a middle-aged newlywed, the person they're marrying has just a lot more life lived differently. So there's a lot more, I don't know, history to get caught up on.
Yes.
Whether it's positive, negative experiences, work experiences, moving, you know, if they've lived in different places or visited different places. And yet I think also what I heard is the very personal nature of there are past friendships, relationships that you're kind of thrust into and getting caught up to speed, but maybe you're always going to be a little bit on the outside, and yet the person you deeply love is kind of living in both these worlds.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
What about some of the thankful moments of, man, I'm really glad I got married at 42 as opposed to earlier, later, or different things, because this has been sweet about our relationship.
I think one of the blessings is going back to just like that open, real conversations that Mike and I can have. We're at a place in our life where we've matured to a point where this is who I am and you can love me or not. And obviously we do love each other because we chose to marry each other, but we're very comfortable with who we are and we're able to be real with each other. And we've, through previous relationship experiences, we've learned from our mistakes about how to communicate and expectations to have of the other person or of ourselves. And so we came in wanting to have very clear, open conversations about even like our roles within our relationship or our expectations of one another. And so for the most part, we do pretty well at that. There are moments where I've had to say, okay, honey, I need to stop. And I need to tell you that this is what I need from you in this moment, so that he doesn't become bad in my eyes because he's not doing what I want him to, or not giving me the answer or the support or whatever I'm needing from him. Mm-hmm. He can just know up front, this is what's happening for me right now. And it would be really helpful if you would do this, or this is how you could show you love me in this moment. He's like, oh, thank you.
And maybe when you were younger, I guess I'm asking a question, but is it that you wouldn't have felt maybe the confidence or comfortable saying that, or is it that you didn't even know what you needed in those moments? Or maybe both. I don't know.
I think it's definitely both, because I didn't necessarily know myself very well. I didn't know what I needed, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable asking for it because I was very much a people pleaser in the past. And so I wouldn't have felt comfortable asking for what I wanted or needed, because it would have been like, how do I keep him happy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of, well, similar-esque to what are you thankful for in marriage? I'm curious what, well, you guys have been married, 6 months?
6 months, actually. He was joking that we got married 6 months after knowing each other. But I misheard him yesterday, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It has been 6 months since we got married. So we knew each other 6 months before we got married, and now we've been married for 6 months. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, in those, so it's only been 6 months. So what are you and Mike looking forward to in the road ahead of marriage?
Yeah. So one of the crazy things is that I instantly became a grandma.
Yeah.
When I got married to Mike, and I kind of joked about what my grandma name would be. I was like, oh, Instagram, because I'm on Instagram. I'm a social media savvy grandma and I'm instantly a grandma.
Love it.
So I was like, I'll be Instagramma. No, but we changed it. I'm Oma, because he's O'Hara, and Oma is also a German word for grandma. So I was like, I'm Oma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so what was the question?
Well, what are you looking forward to?
Oh, yeah. So I'm looking forward to being a grandma, more time getting to know Mike's kids and watching our granddaughter grow up. And because we got married middle-aged, and my husband is close to retirement, so I'm looking forward to our retirement adventures. We went to the Tacoma RV show this past winter, and we're checking out motorhomes. We've already got like our dream motorhome picked out, and we're talking of places we want to travel and where we might park that RV in the winter. Yeah.
So traveling would be a lot to look forward to.
Yes. I'm like, but we got to get rid of that powder room and put in another closet, because this little thing the size of a mini fridge is not going to be enough room for clothes.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Mike's a Jeep guy, and we love outdoor stuff together. And so we love going out in the Jeep into the mountains. He's going to teach me to shoot. We go on fishing trips.
Yeah. Were you a fishing person ever at a point in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because my dad is in Alaska. Growing up, we'd visit him and we'd go fishing. And actually, when Mike met my dad, they already started planning their next visit, and Dad's going to take Mike fishing.
Oh, nice.
So back to when Mike and I first met, he had gone fishing that day that he crashed my cousin's wedding. Well, he knew there was something special about me, and he wanted me to meet his best friend. So we planned another fishing trip for just shortly after that. And he showed me his favorite fishing spot, which I knew meant I had to be someone special, because he's never taken any other ladies fishing, and let alone showing someone his favorite fishing spot. And so it was his buddy Brian and Brian's wife Kelly and Mike and I, and the four of us were fishing. I caught the first 3 fish.
All right.
Oh,
I was like, yes, he was so proud of me. But it was,
beginner's luck, or you're
no beginner's luck. I'm a good fisherwoman.
Hey, she's a good fisher. A sign of things to come. This one's a keeper.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Rebecca, thanks for taking time today. I've known you for a little bit now, and I'm really glad to have had this extended time for some conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And Shane, as always, it's fun to hang out with you.
Oh, yeah.
Get to
Likewise.
share real life together. Listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us today. We have one more episode of Marriage is Messy after this one, and then we're going to look at all kinds of different aspects of life. So whether you're single, married, divorced, dating, widower, there is a whole lot more to life than marriage. So in case you're feeling how long are they going to be on marriage, we got one more episode. Our next one, we're going to talk about some of the things that Rebecca invited us into thinking about today of when two families come together. What are the challenges that come with that? So we're going to really spend our next hour or so looking at that. So until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing. And especially thanks for keeping the conversation going.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.